Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Adventure in Truth livecast. Thank you all for being there today. We appreciate you and looking forward to having a great show today. And say hello to Dr. Jeffrey Smith, my co-host, sitting to
Good
my
morning,
one
folks.
side or another. I always get confused here because I point one direction and my hand goes the opposite direction of what I think it should go. So. But anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. We're super glad to have you here today. We're going to have a very interesting topic to dive into. I wanted to talk for just a quick second at the top here. We have been working on our wellness program, and that continues. Not quite yet prepared to roll out the next level of that process. So look for that probably sometime next week. Coming Friday, we are going to be joined by Paul Diamond again, our friend and shaman from Peru. And today, we are going to talk about if it's not fear, then what is it about? And Jeff, this sort of brainstorm happened a couple days ago, and it intrigued me so much that I wanted to flesh it out a little bit because it's really about looking at these things, especially these major events, from this sort of platform. I guess what happened for me was it sort of hit me like, what if we believe what some of the many of the teachings out there are say is that everything is always conspiring on our behalf. So if we hold that our world is always, and we are always creating in a movement toward evolution, a movement toward growth, that everything is always conspiring, even if it doesn't look particularly positive, that if we can maintain a space or if we can hold it in the framework of our own energy, that we could actually perceive it differently. So I wanted to play with that. It kind of stretches the envelope a little, but I'm very curious to see where it goes, because it's not something I've heard, that I'm aware of, but it kind of stretches a little bit. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Esther Hicks and Abraham always talk about how everything is always working out for you, that the universe is always in a process of creating opportunity and providing what we need for us to live our lives. I find it interesting that you use the word conspiring. The root word of that would be conspiracy, which generally has some kind of a negative connotation to it. So how cool is it that that word could actually be positive as well? But that would imply that there are forces, entities, some behind the scenes. And I think that's what the conspiracy thing is really trying to say, is that there are forces, energies, entities, people, beings, whatever, working behind the scenes toward an agenda. In this case, the agenda would be our growth, our evolving, our learning to move out of an energy of fear and to stay in the energy of love as much as possible.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love the conspiring idea that here we are, everybody, I mean, when you think about it, everybody's got an agenda. It doesn't matter who you are in your own personal life, in the broader scheme of things. This is for me where, and this is not, by the way, going to be a show necessarily focused in the idea of conspiracy stuff. It may tinge to it. There may be some things where we overlap, but that's not really the thrust for me. And that's why I'm interested to see where this conversation goes, because it has all that potential. But that's not my motivation. But it is easily, because we all have a perspective and a viewpoint. Some of this will align with that. Some of it will not. So if it's not about fear, what is it about? That title for me is just about. We've been through the process of talking about this stuff and looking at it, kind of looking at how the propagation of fear through this process has been just kind of insane. And that it's like every day it ramps up. And I think for me, the thought process was, well, if it isn't about fear, then what would it be? What would be the positive expression of what's happening right now? And how could we look at it differently? And so to your point, part of that is, how do you live your life? How do you walk your life through this lens of love, as opposed to a lens of fear, or a lens of hate, or a lens of something else that isn't supporting and uplifting your growth? So first off is I think that was one of the things about some of these things we're going to talk about is if we look at it from a lens of love. And again, I'm not going to swear that my perspective is entirely from that lens. I am the effort was to, and the energy behind it, I think, was to go there. But I wanted to leave it open. I wanted to leave it in a place where, wow, this is going to be an interesting dialogue, because I don't know that I have a completely fleshed out thought process yet. You know what I mean? It was so overwhelming, the thought process, that I went, wow, this has got to be explored a little bit. So let's see what happens. So I picked three main items because those three were the ones that showed up for me, and I'm open to even looking at more, and I'm sure that many of these will overlap other things. So the first process here that I was looking at in this idea of what is it about, how could we look at this a little differently, maybe more positively, is looking at the history and evolution of the pandemic idea, the idea of pandemic transformation. What struck me is that at every juncture in history where we've had this type of event, it has been the precursor to some shift in consciousness on the planet in some form. Where you go back to like the bubonic plague, you go back to the Spanish flu, or you go back, each of those, you can see that when the world was brought to its knees for a period of time, after that period of time, there was a great growth and evolution in thought and consciousness and ideas and industry in pretty much everything. It seems like there was some sort of upkick. There was some sort of growth and spurt that went on there. So for me, that led to thinking of this in a different term. So where are we in the context of the human experience? Is it possible that this pandemic, this virus, is part of this ongoing evolution, and that every so often there comes a tipping point? Every so often, because of the nature of ego, because of the nature of being in this time-space reality and the illusions that it creates, and the lack of understanding for most to understand the energy-driven concepts, that there comes a period where things have to shift and things have to grow. And you and I have talked at length about the things we've watched over the years, and particularly the last couple of years, that just seem completely unsustainable, and yet they continue. And then all of a sudden, boom, here we are. Unsustainability is like, oh, yeah, it really is unsustainable. Now what are we going to do? So that's the first one, sort of this idea of, can we look through history and can we see how these events have moved the human race forward each and every time they occurred? So that's the first one. Any thoughts on that in your own experience, Jeff, as far as the history is concerned?
Well, I was reflecting on the words you were using, particularly when the world has been brought to its knees. Kind of made me think of somebody praying in a way. Made me think of somebody begging for mercy. But whatever the reason is for somebody being on their knees, it's a realization of there's something so significant happening right now that there's a necessity to take a pause, that I have to deal with this. That's really what getting on your knees is about, is I have to deal with what's in front of me right now, whether it's somebody wielding a sword that's getting ready to lop my head off, or whether it's what are we going to do to protect our home so that a virus or a plague or something cannot affect us? What are we going to do regarding climate change and all the other social unrest that's happening with tribalism and racism and all these sorts of things? We're at a point where there is enough discord and unrest that if people are not willing to get on their knees and we just stay glued to our Netflix shows and try to pretend that it's not happening, we will eventually have to all get on our knees to deal with this. So I still see it as a good thing. I'm smiling, and I keep saying every time somebody asks me how I'm doing and how the pandemic is affecting me, I say I'm mildly amused by it. It's not something that I'm going to begin to resonate in an energy of fear toward, even if it shows up in my direct family, even if I find myself in the emergency room on my way out to go meet my maker. It's just not going to be something that I'm going to be upset about and try to fight. It's just, you have to flow with it, understand what's happening, try as best to understand the signs of the times and everything that's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and stay in that positive energy. I mean, you want to invite whatever's happening to your doorstep, resonate in the energy of fear, and you'll be like a magnet, just attracting it straight to you, um, literally in an energetic way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the virus is not going to go after an energy of love. It has no ability to attach to bond with, to affect that energy of love. It just doesn't. I don't have the science to prove that. That's more of an intuitive, psychic sort of a hit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You know, I was watching. We regularly share things that we discover throughout the week, and I was watching the emotion movie, and one of the things that I think really applies here that we're getting to watch in real time is that, you know, the whole thrust is about, understand, guys, it's all about energy. We are energy form. It even went to the point of showing how if you go, the deeper you go into the body, the more nothing there is. As you get down to the macro level or the micro level, that once you get down to the atomic level, it's like it's all space. But it's all energy. It's all particles. But one of the things that I loved was they talked about symptoms, and they talked about the chaos. That the idea is that because we're energy beings, that here is this energy flow coming to us, or we're stepping into, or whatever's happening in the way of vibration, and it's creating, because of our beliefs, because of the things that we hold in our energy system. When these vibrations come through, they create chaos, and the chaos is actually what we consider disease. It's what we consider, or what becomes disease, because the chaos doesn't resolve. Therefore, the systems and the tissues begin to break down because they can't exist in that chaos. So here we are in a time frame, in a time and place where the chaos is internal and external simultaneously. Not that isn't necessarily true all the time when that's the case, but it's painfully obvious that it's internal. It's there's nowhere you can look that chaos isn't, unless you are truly doing your work. But even then, I find there's an awareness of the chaos. Like, the energy is there and present because there's a vibration that's trying to integrate into the space. And we're going to talk more about that with a couple of the other pieces too.
I don't know that people caught the reference that you were making. You went over it very quickly. The movie.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I did go over it quickly. Go ahead.
I think it was called. Oh, what was it called?
Emotion.
Emotion.
Motion 2.0.
There you go. And what was really cool, how they took that word emotion and they took it as E and motion,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that that word is energy in motion, is what emotion is. Emotion is energy in motion, and it's going to be an emotion toward negative or positive. So simple.
So I would encourage the listeners, guys, that the point of this process is to give you a different perspective so that you can take this into your own experience, do your own kind of evaluation and investigation, look into some of this history, look into the experiences that we're having, and see if you can find your own correlation, see if you can find how this connects. In my experience, the more I look, the more I engage, you can see the duality, you can see the chaos, but there's also this kind of underlying flow that continues to evolve. The effects that it's created, whether it's through the things that are changing in the economy, or things that are changing in the environment, and things that are changing in people. So looking at history and evolution, look to those things to see how, not as a way of looking back to give meaning to now, but as a way of understanding how this could possibly be a very positive experience that's about everyone getting an opportunity, an equal opportunity, to stand in their power, to stand in their truth, to begin to become very conscious of their own experience. And we all get to do that now if we want to, if we choose to. So that's the first piece, is this. So what if it's not about fear? What if it's about evolution, history and evolution? Because remember, transformation in definition is about transcending and including. So transformation is not, I'm not that anymore, therefore I don't have to pay attention to it. It is, this is where I've been, this is who I've been, this is what I've created, and I am transforming. So all of that becomes a part of who I am now. It may not be where I put my energy, but it's what brought me to where I am now. And so transforming is, I'm going to transcend the energies that are currently there, and I'm going to include them to lift and elevate and move into a new state or a new vibration. So taking into step two, we're going to get into a little bit of this racial transformation piece in this George Floyd and all that came before. I started to tag this with looking up all the various names of people, and the list got longer and longer and longer and longer. And I thought, oh goodness, I want to honor those people, but I can't do it in that format. So we will, the idea here is to talk about how this is different, maybe, how this is potentially something in the throes of a negative expression, actually a forward moving process. And how I see that is, if you understand the co-creative process, if you understand that we're all here to move humanity forward, regardless of who you are or where you are, what we miss is getting into the energy of who we truly are instead of the energy of who we're told we're supposed to be. And once we understand that, once we go to that place and we start to evolve who we are in relationship with everyone in this planet in some form, and our agreement here as a human being is a co-creative one, meaning we're here to provide support and energy for whatever is needed and our own personal evolution. And through the focus of our own personal growth and evolution, we expand and we grow, and it becomes about, not about me in the ME small, but it becomes about all. And we can, but the only way to get there from here, in my mind, is that you have to understand and set the foundation for who you are. So going back to this racial transformation piece, I was looking at this thinking, how amazing is it? And George, thank you. I want to say that loud and clear, because that was a huge deal there to watch that process. But what got to happen here is that we all got to watch it. Everybody has been stopped. So because we've all been in the same place, looking at the same situation, you don't have 75% or 80 or 90% of the population running at full tilt in their craziness to get to work and to run their careers and to run their businesses and to do all the things that have distracted us for a long time. What we had is a moment of absolute clarity about that experience, because it's come before, because it's incessantly come before. Suddenly we're in a place where everybody sees it. And look at the result. The result is we have this huge outpouring across the country, across the world. I was seeing yesterday. I was floored to see all the demonstrations. Now, I can only go by what I observe and what people I talk to in various places around the world. But it's kind of extraordinary to me that we are finally seeing a movement that's a movement. And I think that's because the attention has been captured in a way that it's never been captured before. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's taking the idea of sacrifice to a completely different level, in understanding that we're all in this to promote the best possible outcome. And so those agreements, those interactions, those relationships, while they still need to be dealt with when inappropriate, still can create some very positive result, which is we are now all focused wholeheartedly into the understanding of how deeply racist the foundation of who we are has been, and doesn't need to be. And I've watched as a lot of people, who don't typically think of themselves in that fashion, getting very defensive about things like the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, and not seeing the dynamic of how that doesn't serve, because the focus needs to be on those that need change, and us focusing on supporting that change. And how do we go about it from that perspective? And I think that seems to be what we're doing with these the marches, and not the protests. That's a whole sidelight. That's a whole other thing that we can look at as well. but that's I don't think the thrust of the movement, if that makes sense.
As you were talking, I was reflecting on why are there different skin colors? Why are we different races, nations? And it's just fascinating because by design, we could be tribal, we could be separatists, or we could be inclusionists, where you are able to, at some point in your own evolving in your humanity, can realize that we're all just one drop in a big ocean, and that one drop in the ocean really cannot distinguish itself from any of the other drops in the ocean. It is all one. It just is. And that's part of the design, is for us to get to a place where we can all see ourselves as the same. And that's through the dissolution of the ego. The ego needs to believe for some reason that it's better than another. And we're at a point now where we're all getting to be confronted with that we're not. It doesn't matter what your status is. It doesn't matter what your state or position is in life. We all come here the same way, and we all leave the same way. And that's the great equalizer. And you can't take even one grain of sand with you. Nothing that you do here in the material physical world leaves with you. So truly, nothing matters here in the physical. Nothing matters here in the physical, including body type, body color, just churches you go to or don't go to. That stuff is so not what matters, but that's what the ego pays attention to. So I think, to provide some context behind what we're discussing this morning, is moving from fear to love is also moving from ego to spirit. That egotism is the opposite of spirituality. That egotistical is spirituality's opposite. And ego knows it's a one-trick pony. It's a one and done show. It's here one time, and then it's over and done. And it wants to get the biggest bang for its buck, or get the biggest tombstone at the graveyard. I mean, seriously, it just never ends. What the ego wants, what the ego demands. I mean, have you ever walked through a graveyard and go, what family thought they were so important that they had to build this mausoleum in the middle of the graveyard that sticks out like a sore thumb? What in the heck is that all about? Even in death, they're still demanding to be paid attention to. I mean, it's hilarious.
It's funny because I have that experience of graveyards in general. I just kind of go, wow, the arrogance of this. This is bizarre. Why would you want to keep your body stuck in a hole in the ground, consuming space and resource? I mean, the whole thing obviously it's a historical thing, obviously, but so I was here. Yeah, I was here. And we can go stand there in front of the rock and say, yeah, they're there. They're right there. Fortunately, they don't stay there, I don't think. But back to this, coming back around to the transformation piece, I want to take a second here and ask you all out there in livecast land to just take a moment and feel your way into this. I want you to feel your way into appreciation for the events that are occurring. And in particular, I would like to direct appreciation at the energy of George Floyd. I would like to hold appreciation around that event and around his contribution to moving a very much needed conversation into the open in a way that it cannot be denied and it cannot be pushed down and not paid attention to. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see over the time here how this all evolves and where it leads us to. But as we talked about these things overlapping, you have this pandemic situation that laid the foundation for everyone to stop. And as we said earlier, to sort of drop to your knees in this experience and be like, wow, what is going on? And then laying over these other options and these other things that are contributing to more clarity, contributing to more understanding. I was just kind of blown away at the idea that here's this guy who, in his experience, in his sacrifice, lit the fire so bright for everything that came before in a way that has never happened in this experience. there have been lots of charged events and horrible things happen, and this is no less horrible. But I think it's important that we find a space of appreciation for the effort, for the energy that has brought this forward. I know that probably sounds a little bizarre, but I think that's the best way to honor when someone contributes an energy to the planet that creates massive sweeping change, is to appreciate that energy and appreciate what they did to make that happen. And I know some out there, and I feel it in my heart. This is not about not acknowledging what happened. This is about, how can I hold this in love? How can I hold this in my heart? How can I appreciate that this world is always conspiring to move forward? It's always working to get better, even if sometimes it doesn't look that way. And sometimes we got to have these situations because they draw attention, because they make us stop and look. When you have a police officer sitting in a video for an extended period of time, putting a knee on a man's neck and watching him worry his knee into the man's neck, you got to stop and go, what is going on? How is this possible in our world today? Well, it is possible. And what I feel we need is that moment of, how do we shift? We shift by appreciation. We can start there. That's the easiest access point. Because we can think of George Floyd, and we can, as a human to another human, we can appreciate the beauty of that person. We can, regardless of history, we can appreciate the contribution of that person and lift the energy around the situation so that it can continue to grow and evolve in the most positive fashion possible. So just take that minute, even if you just breathe in and breathe out for 3 cycles, and just bring his energy to your awareness and appreciate it, like, and it and him and his family and the situation and the city and the people involved, and just appreciate it. Appreciate it and allow yourself to be moved by that appreciation. Allow yourself to be opened by that appreciation to more possibility, to more of what can be. So thank you for letting me take the time to do that, and I hope that you're able to walk through that a little more gracefully for yourself, and to find a place of peace, because that's what the sacrifice is about. It's about getting rowdy to change, but it's also about being at peace with self so that you can be an instrument of change. Instrument of change. Anything you'd like to add to that, Jeff, or thoughts about that? I got a little carried away.
That word you used again, sacrifice, that if that's what he came here to do, to have his 8 minutes of fame, well, he's getting a lot more than that because we're still talking about it. But I don't know that it was really a sacrifice if he's satisfied his purpose. It would, to me, be the culmination of just no different than other people who have been on the planet and made heroic contributions to our evolution and our consciousness. I don't really see that it's a sacrifice. It's simply, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it. It's Blue. I hope that's not an inflammatory statement.
No. It's actually, it's a beautiful perspective, actually.
I'm seeing it as purpose fulfilled.
I love that. I love that as a thought, the idea of purpose fulfilled. Is it assigning meaning? Maybe, but why not? Why not assign a meaning that is far more powerful than anything else if we all focused in that direction?
Yeah. So did he lose his life? Did he lose his life, or did he give his life? And that was purpose fulfilled. And if it moves humanity forward, I would sign up for that. I would like to. I've demonstrated a willingness to do that through military service and other things like that in the past. So it's a good state of mind to be in, that you are willing to offer, the highest contribution you can make to making the planet a better place. And he did that.
I was just having this vision of the only one that came to mind was this idea of nesting dolls. And that I remember when we started this particular segment, I was talking about the list of names of people that came before George, that it just got so long I couldn't put it all on the screen. And to me, the energy of it is like nesting dolls, where it started however long ago, however long the seed of this ugliness that has been in our culture has been. As each person dies, it's another nest in this deal. It's another doll in the nest. And now George is this big, and even in life, he's this big, tall, big man, but I mean, it's just, I'm drawing in a fun parallel, but the idea that this is an accumulation of energy. This is an accumulation of circumstance after circumstance after circumstance after circumstance that has built a momentum. And is it not remarkable to anyone out there listening that how it happened, when it happened, that it happened, in the way that it happened, it's just, if somebody's out there orchestrating this, they're fucking brilliant, because you couldn't orchestrate it that precisely. I don't think. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm willing to be crazy, but consider the way it happened, when it happened, how it has impacted, the result that it's created. To me, is bordering on miraculous. With everything that has come before, it's not just another situation. It's a change. I don't even know what the word. I lost the word. I got so intense. But it's a monumental process. It's a monumental change. Nothing is in a vacuum. This is an accumulation of energy. This is an accumulation of frustration. Are there many different threads probably running through this? I'm sure there are. But this is the one that has created an effect in our world unlike that has come before, in a way that will hopefully continue to move us forward. So again, thank you for, is that you on that? Is that the ding on your end? There's a ding coming through.
Uh-oh.
I heard a ding.
No ding.
Where's that coming from? Who's dinging me? So thank you for indulging this particular part of the conversation, and we're going to move on to the next piece here and take it a little further even. If I can click a button. So the other major one that came up, and this is the one that actually started this thought process for me, which is this, the other current that's been running a lot is this 5G situation. And the situation of is it good, is it bad, is it hurting us, is it killing us, are they trying to control us, and all of that. And what occurred to me is, hold on, time out, wait a second. What's actually occurring here is man has decided to alter the vibration of the planet himself. Man has made a conscious choice to alter the vibration. I want you to hear this. Alter the vibration of our planet. Now, consent, non-consent, all that kind of stuff, there's stuff that has to be played into this picture. But my point in this is we are, they, whoever, whatever, we're changing the vibration of the planet. If everything is about vibration, if everything is about energy, could it be that this change in vibration requires us to change our vibration? And if we don't change our vibration, if we don't do healthier things, if we don't start treating ourselves better and create states of wellness and health within our body, it will destroy our body. It is the chaos that we talked about earlier. Whenever vibrations are not in harmony, something has to change. So what is the change? Well, we're deciding we're changing the vibration of the planet. So guess what? We get to change our vibration to get there from here. And if we don't, then things will happen. Then disease will occur. Then people will die. And that's going to happen anyway, because that's the nature of being a human being. But again, a change in the thought perspective. If you look at it from a love perspective, what is the possibility that this is about another way, another option for us to change our vibration? And it's another way to say, it's not an option, people. Change your vibration, because if you don't, things will not work well. And so I've been swimming in that for 3 or 4 days now, thinking, how would that fly? Because there's no conspiracy there. There's nobody. Even if that's the intent, even if that is the intent of some of the people that are propagating the 5G technology, here's the reality. It was created. It had to be created from somewhere. It didn't come from hell, people. It came from creation. Someone created that energy. Someone discovered it, whatever they did, and maybe they decided the use of that energy would be different than the energy actually is supposed to be used for. But in the end, we all have a choice. We can either choose to destroy the technology and go back to where we were. Again, go back, because that seems to be the operative phrase for this pandemic. Let's go back to where we were. Or we look at what's before us and say, how do I change my vibration to resonate differently in this environment? Part of that is what I eat, part of that is what I think, part of that is what I feel, part of that is how I do me every day. Am I operating from love, or am I operating from fear? So another good, fun, interesting idea to chew on here. What if this too is actually, in the end, something that we can use to catapult ourselves to the next place or next level?
Well, let's hope that it is. And what a waste of time it would be if it wasn't, right? It will be. It absolutely will be. And so, how do we know that? In some of the ancient sacred texts, Ayurveda being one, Book of Enoch being another one, some others coming to mind a little bit more slowly, but there's this notion that there really isn't anything here for us to do. You don't have to come here to the planet to do anything. Divinity by itself will walk us through the path of taking some steps closer toward this perpetual state of being in an energy of love. And that all really we have to do is pay attention. If we just pay attention to health and wellness, because that's a way of loving yourself. Anything that is lowering vibration is going to be some form of self-sabotage that is keeping you or taking you closer to a vibration and an energetic form of fear, taking yourself away from love. So as we talked once before about how there is only love, and as you distance yourself from that energy, you will have an experience of fear. So fear actually doesn't even exist. It's just it's a feeling state that when the mind and both sides of the brain start working together, creates this experiential state of a negative experience. We call that fright, we call that fear, we call it anxiety, we call it, it has 1,000 names, but it's not love. It's absolutely not love. So the purpose for us to be here isn't even as specific as a specific job or a particular relationship that you're in. I think we make that too detailed and too narrow, that really all we have to do is pay attention. Just pay attention, slow down enough that you have some kind of a prayer life, some kind of a meditation life, that you are aware of the food that you eat. Just pause for a moment. You know, when I was a kid, we gave thanks before we ate our food, and people really don't do that so much anymore. It's ready. As soon as you see it, it's on the table, you gobble it up. If you just simply, as a demonstration, I have this little bowl of blueberries here. Oh, why can't I? I'm doing the.
You got it.
So, just taking your hand and putting it over the top of the blueberries before you eat them, you can actually feel their energy. It may sound goofy to you, and if it does, that's because you've never done it before. But you can actually feel the energy from your food through the palm of your hand if you'll just put your hand there just for a moment or two. You're not that hungry that you've got to gobble it up right away. Just for heaven's sake, take 30 seconds and feel the energy coming from the plate of food that you're getting ready to eat, and give thanks for it. You will enjoy it significantly more. It will enliven and fuel your body and your system just a little bit more. You don't even have to say any words. There's no magic formula for it. It's just simply pausing, appreciating, giving thanks, and having gratitude for what you're about to consume that the universe gave you. It's a gift. You may say, "Oh, I worked for it." Well, really? Did you really work for it? I mean, if you really get into this whole thing, did you make your body? Did you pump your blood through your body? Did you make your brain? Did you create your own motivation? And the reality is we're just here having these amazing experiences. And if we will slow down enough to smile, grin, laugh, giggle, pay attention to all the things going on, some that are very, very loving and light, and some that are very, very dark and need to be addressed. And that's kind of, we got a little balance going of that today in our own podcast, light and loving and healing and oriented toward love and health. And we're also talking about racism and some of the darker energies on the planet. So even in our own podcast, we're kind of looking at both bookends of that vibration.
I'm reminded, is it Neil Donald Walsh? Is that his name? The writer?
Yep.
So he starts and ends this emotion video with a very simple vignette, which is absolutely stunning. And he says, when you wake up in the morning, I'm paraphrasing and I apologize because it's so brilliant. If you wake up in the morning and you're able to get out of bed, you have everything you need.
For the whole day.
And I went, that's spectacular. Just from the perspective of honoring this. We so don't spend time honoring this. Honoring because it's on autopilot, because it's a part of the autonomic system, it's a part of the system that we don't have to pay attention to. I think we tend to move away from this idea of honoring or appreciating. And again, that's the way to get there from here. Not the, when I say the way meaning, to me, one of the easiest ways, because appreciation, you can fake it till you make it, and it's easy to do. You can just keep talking and your energy will engage at some point in the process, even if you're not there, meaning you're upset, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're depressed, whatever. If you sat in a state of just appreciating everything you could think of for the next 10 minutes, your energy would change completely. Every time you do it. And you can sit there while you're doing it, watching your mind fighting with you about it. You can sit there and feel all of the feelings that you want to feel about not wanting to do it, and it will still change your energy. That's very telling. It's very telling to who we are. It's very telling to what we are truly about. That if we simply focused away from what we don't want and focused to what we do want, if we focus on love and as opposed to fear, it will radically change us just by doing it. And it doesn't require you to read 10,000 books and go to 14,000 seminars and read, and do all and listen to every podcast you can. Those things can help, but just take the step. Just step in. I feel like the topic of our conversation today was inspired from that place. This was not a topic I had been burning to discuss. It was in the throes of a conversation, and it landed in me, and I went, oh my God, what an amazing conversation this could be. Because I started that conversation with 3 or 4 people that I was with at that particular time. And the more I thought on it, the more it expanded to me. And that's the kind of thing that occurs on a regular basis when you honor this. And then this then can honor all, can honor in a way that you can step out and go, how can I contribute today? How can I be of service today? And the joy and the desire in that is natural and palpable because you're aligned to the vibration of the essence of who you are. So I picked 3 major categories. Jeff, I don't know if you have, as we've had this conversation, if any have popped up for you that you want to throw in the mix and play with, or anybody out there in livecast land. And we'll start with Jeff since you're here.
I'm just noticing Aaron's question.
I saw that too.
Go ahead with that.
Throw it up. Let's see how it fits. Oh, there we go. So our friend Aaron here. How do you convey without sounding negative that we are nothing? We are temporary residents. We are insignificant, and in the end, just become dust. I think it relieves life's pressure when you just back away and realize this. Just do your part, be a good person, and come from a place of love and appreciation. Go ahead, Jeff.
So there's certainly a part of us that is going to just become dust. This body will become dust. I don't know that this is necessarily from the very beginning of our work together, Jim. We've approached this from we have a soul spirit that was in existence before it incarnated into this thing we call a body and a mind, and that prevails after this experience we call this life is over.
Hmm.
So these experiences that we gain while we're here are part and parcel. It's like a cosmic university that we're all attending. Each life here could be like a class or a specific course that we're taking in the effort toward understanding ourselves, understanding what love is, what love isn't. You know, sometimes you have to live a life that is very dark and despondent simply to know what love isn't, so that you can know what love is. And there's a paradox in there, and it's actually quite amazing that all the people on the planet that are living very dark, hedonistic, carnal, self-serving, selfish lives are getting an opportunity to create part of the cosmic database of what humanity's capable of, what God is capable of, to sometimes, again, to the best way to know what something is to know what it isn't. So there's a balance here. Everything is in balance. But I like Aaron's comments about coming from a place of love and appreciation, and it's that part of us. Because if truly we were here to eat, drink, and be merry, for, you know, tomorrow surely you shall die, nobody would follow laws and nobody would obey rules. There would be no reason to work corporately together. So there is something inside of us that is programmed toward gratitude, appreciation, kindness, empathy, you know, these higher virtues that we seem to come here programmed to resonate in those energies the best that we can. And perhaps each time we come here, we get a little bit better at that. You know, that's kind of a nice thought to go with or to roll with.
Love it. I would add to that, you know, in taking the words, Aaron, that you've put there, without sounding negative. So let's start with that we are nothing. And I'm going to say this in a different fashion. I'm going to say that we are no thing. That in the context of the physical reality of time and space, all that we see are things in tables and desks and chairs and the things that we see in this process. I'm going to say that we are no thing from the perspective of if in the context of getting quiet with oneself or just contemplating for a moment, you consider your beingness in the context in the context of all that is. I think that's where Aaron's words come from, is this idea that, wow, I am such a small part of this vast universe, and yet everything I do has a contribution to that. Yet all that which I come from is so vast that my brain can't comprehend it and has to filter aspects of reality in order for the physical reality to handle that perspective. So I read Aaron's words there, temporary residence being insignificant, that in the end we become dust, is more about the humility of recognizing the vastness and expanse of the incredible universe that we live in, and that we get to partake in this fashion, that we get to, for a period, take that spark and become this that gets to have this whole other experience of rationality and thought and construct and creation in a very different fashion than in an energetic fashion. So to me, your question and your comment are beautiful, because the love and appreciation is about that. It's about, and to our earlier conversation, Jeff, about the pandemic and being on your knees, it's like, wow, this is so much bigger than I comprehend, but I want to know how I can contribute to this evolution. So that's how I would approach this. And I hope, Aaron, that answers your question. It's a great question and much appreciated.
I'd like to push just a teeny bit further into that and link something else that's been showing up in some of my deep dive meditations recently, is this idea of coming from a background of Christianity, which I have openly stated publicly many times that I still have some of those traditional belief systems, but I believe for the most part I've outgrown some of the limitations in which that particular spiritual practice limits you to, that I believe that there's a piece of God in each one of us, that God imparted itself into each one of us. And then one of the things that, if you believe the story of Jesus being put on the cross, was his heretical statement that he and God were one and the same. And that if we actually lived our lives believing that we are God, imagine the responsibility that comes with that. I mean, just for a moment, that if everything you said, if everything you did through the filter of, I am a representation of, I am an example of, I am trying my best to be the light and the love that God is. The more that you attempt to do that, it's unbelievably humbling and challenging to actually be willing to see yourself that way. It is so much easier to take the Christian view of God is over there and I am here, that God is separate from me. It is so much easier to do that, because then I don't have to live up to being God. I don't have to. I can say things like, the devil made me do it. I can completely absolve myself. I'm human. I can't do that, God. I'm human. And God would say, no, you're me. I'm you. We are the same. There may be a consolidation of more of that we would call an energy that is God, but we're all a part of it. And we have the responsibility to live in that loving, accepting, unconditional energy. That love is truly unconditional, that God is truly unconditionally loving. And that is not what the Bible promotes. The Bible promotes, you got to follow these rules or there's going to be hell to pay. Literally, I meant that, not just tongue in cheek. But if we could transcend that and back to this pandemic thing, back to the Mr. Floyd issue that got our podcast going today, that was God. That was God getting the life breath choked out of him. In the same way, that was God with the guy on his knee on the guy's back, but just not much of God. That was a much, much smaller, hardly recognizable, not yet aware version of God that has a lot of karma to pay off now and a lot of growth yet to do. But this notion of, would you be willing to be God for a day? How about a minute? Could you be God for a minute? And I don't mean like the responsibility of running the universe. I just mean in any way that you're showing up, in the choices that you're making, with everything you think, everything you watch, everything you eat. Is this something that would be representing love, i.e. God? It's fun. It's really fun to play with. And if you want to grow, that is ripe for stepping into and getting your growth boots on.
Yeah, really good stuff. And it's, it speaks to all of the evolution that's going on. It's time for Christianity to evolve. It's time for our concepts of all of this stuff to evolve. When you watch, and again, it's another interesting piece of this experience. When you watch the leader of the free world make a photo opportunity of religion, you got to stop and go, wow. Something still isn't right. I don't know. For those of you who may not know, our president decided to tear gas and bomb people in the state capitol so he could walk across the street and get a photo opportunity in front of a church holding a Bible. Whatever that was for, why it was for, who knows? But it's another way of understanding, another way of looking at how much these things mean, really, in the scheme of things. What really matters to me is that those people who went there to state their truth, to be in the energy of love, to support the changes that are necessary. But I would also want to add to this that Jeff was talking about that moment where when Floyd's on the ground and the cops are there and that's all God working and all God in action. There's a combination of things here that I want to point out, and that is co-creation is a significant part of our process. And co-creation relies on the energies that are available in the best possible fashion to create these changes, to create these ideas, to create these thought processes. So here you have these people in varying degrees that we don't know. I don't know them. I've never met them. I don't know their families. I don't know anything. I just know what I observe. And the positive expression that occurred as a result of this enrolled in a co-creative process people who were prepared to do things that look really awful in order to support that positive outcome to take place. That's the power of love. That to me is the power of what the universe, God, whatever, what that is in our experience. It's that profound, and we are so minuscule to that power that honoring it, appreciating it, aligning with it, supporting it, uplifting it, it just seems natural. It just seems like that's the direction that you would want to go. And I understand that that's not everybody's choice. That's not everybody's decision, but that's how co-creation works, because all of those levels create all of these opportunities for great change to happen. Because when the light walks into the room and the light turns on, the light will still dispel the darkness. Somehow, some way, it will.
Only happen. Always.
Only always. Jeff, I appreciate your trusting me with this topic today to bring out some very sensitive areas of our culture right now, and places where there's a large divide for the conspiracy theories versus the non-conspiracy theories versus what's real versus what's not. And my hope for all of you guys out there in podcast land and livecast land is that we were able to provide a love-based experience here, that you could take this into your own experience and begin to explore this energy in your own world, in your own life. How can you incorporate it? How can you integrate it so that you can carry a newer perspective, a broader perspective, and one that's based in love?
Absolutely.
And we appreciate you guys very much. And Jeff, is there anything you'd like to add in the closing for this process today?
Yeah, it might be interesting why all this is going on or what's actually happening, the forces behind it. But regardless of what it is and why it's happening, it is happening. And there's always something to learn. If we're willing to pay attention, there's always something to learn from what is happening with regard to perhaps doing something about it so that it doesn't have to keep happening and that we could grow and evolve from it. Only always, again, is there something to learn.
Only always. So take a moment, find a moment of appreciation, even if you do it for 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day. Do whatever you can. I know Jeff had some recommendations about being God for a day. Let yourself experience that. Let yourself start to think and feel from a different perspective. Let that chaos that has been generated through all of the external circumstances go. Find the peace. Let those energies go within your system. Find them, release them, let them move on, and let yourself feel that peace and love in your own experience. We greatly appreciate everyone out there who's watching, who participates with us and engages with us, even if we don't get to talk to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We love hearing from you. www.adventuresintruth.com is our website. You can check us out 2 days a week here live, Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time and Friday afternoons at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And catch our radio show on BBS Radio, which is currently running an awesome series that we've done on plant-based medicines. And I think we're in week 4. We'll be in week 4 this Saturday of that process. So that's at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And again, thank you all for joining us. Have an amazing day, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
All righty. So long, everyone.